Yo, what's going on, everyone? Dave for coming to watch. We got guys an update on Winter Storm Blair. Right, Winter Storm Blair is officially kind of getting together here as we go into the morning hours and afternoon hours of today. All right, we're talking about big time snow totals, even some freezing rain with a major ice storm expected. I've got all the details coming right up. All right, so thank you all for joining me here on this Saturday afternoon. We have a lot to talk about in this video, as I'm going to give you all the latest details and pretty much the final details and forecasts on what you can expect if you're going to be impacted by Winter Storm Blair. So start out here, take a look at your current radar. You can see right now we actually do have a couple things already going on. We have freezing rain in Oklahoma, which is pretty far south if you're asking me. All right, or if you're telling me, but you can see a lot of the snow starting to, kind of spread out here across sections of South Dakota into Nebraska, and eventually into western Iowa. We'll start to see more of that snowfall. So that's a pretty big band that's starting to set up there that has been getting heavier and heavier over the past couple hours. But look at this. We have light areas of freezing rain and even some sleet starting to mix in here across sections of far northern Oklahoma into parts of central and eastern Kansas. All right, this will continue to kind of build with that band of rain showers and snow showers, and that will kind of turn into our winter storm if you really want to put it that way. But that's pretty much exactly what's going on right here. As we kind of go throughout the day today. We also do have some of that snow back into Montana, where we do have the winter storm warnings. All right, we're talking about a lot of snow accumulations with that, but that's kind of moving out now, so we're going to keep our focus on the Midwestern United States. And finally, for the last part of this portion of the update, you can see we also do have a little bit of lake effect snow that's starting to spread here across sections of Michigan, off of Lake Ontario, Lake Erie. That's kind of going all the way down into Pennsylvania. I mean, these lake effect snow bands are working their way pretty far south. We've been talking also about the potential for snow squalls. I know we had really intense snow squalls yesterday in the Ohio, or definitely in parts of eastern Ohio and into Pennsylvania. We did see a lot of snow squalls near the Pittsburgh area, so a lot of dangerous stuff coming together here, but let's get right into the video. So take a look here. We move on to your alerts. You can see our map is filled up a lot. We have a lot of bright colors to show here. So if we start out here in the central United States, you can see all the way from central and eastern Kansas to pretty much southern Ohio into a lot of northern Kentucky. In this pink shade, we have winter storm warnings. All right, that's going out for once again central and eastern Kansas. I think I said a different state. I think I said I don't know if I said this was Kansas, but this is going out for central and eastern Kansas, southeastern Nebraska, into northern and central sections of Missouri, into southern and central Illinois, northern Kentucky, parts of southern and central Indiana, and then eventually also southern Ohio there. So a lot of counties out here currently under winter storm warnings. All right, but this does include a lot of major cities, a lot of major interstates here. But if you also look here, we do have a little bit of a purple shade showing up. That is our ice storm warnings, which that's where we're expecting those ice accumulations to get close to possibly as high as 1 inch. Which is definitely going to cause major problems to infrastructure, just disruptions to daily life, and also obviously extremely hard to almost impossible travel conditions, because also you're going to get a little bit of a layer of snow on the backside that's going to cover the ice, and when you have ice with snow accumulating over it, that's always a recipe for disaster, because you have really slippery surface conditions with that. All right, so definitely not the kind of situation we want to see play out with that, but we do have that today. And you can also see we do have winter storm watches that have been issued for portions of southern Pennsylvania, southern New Jersey, into the Delmarva area. This does include D.C. I believe Philadelphia is just north of this winter storm watch. If not, I think they are currently in it. You can see that does include West Virginia there, and a lot of Virginia as well. All right, so these will likely be upgraded to winter storm warnings as the event kind of goes on. That's the only reason why they're not. But if you look at the progression of the past 48 hours, you could see it's kind of going one by one from National Weather Service to National Weather Service, west to east, and they kind of upgrade. They take turns upgrading their winter storm watches to winter storm warnings. So we'll probably see that happen a little bit later today. All right, but if you're in the tan shade here into central Pennsylvania towards the Panhandle, we actually do have some wind advisories. Very gusty conditions out there, so watch for possible trees down. spotty power outages, but just secure loose objects because they could definitely get blown around in the yard there. But yeah, definitely gusts up to 55 miles per hour possible with that. And you can also see we do have some pretty intense conditions elsewhere here. You can actually see across northeastern Florida we do have freeze warnings. That's going on for these areas in the dark blue/purple shade. You can also see that does include some counties out there in southeastern Georgia. So definitely very, very cold conditions with that. And if you look up north, I believe these are some of the first of the season, but we have extreme cold warnings for a few counties out there in northwestern North Dakota. So really, really cold conditions. That's a big punch of our major Arctic outbreak that we're expecting. That's kind of the first round that we're expecting to come through. That's really what's producing this pattern change and just this huge Arctic plunge there. So you can see the beginning stages of that warranting those extreme cold warnings. And you also do have cold weather advisories for those surrounding areas, including some areas of northwestern Minnesota, the rest of northern and central North Dakota, and then a little bit of Montana there. All right, and then a lot of counties in between are also under winter weather advisories. That's in the purple shade, so a lot going on. Obviously, it took a long time to get through that, but one more thing to note is that we also do have some lake effect snow warnings going out for counties off of Lake Erie and off of Lake Ontario, so up towards like Watertown, Erie, Pennsylvania. So if you're in this kind of bluish teal shade or whatever, or I guess greenish blue shade, all right, that's where we do have the lake effect snow warning. So definitely a lot of snow kind of across the board here as we wake up on our Saturday morning and get into our Saturday afternoon. All right, so we move over here to the NAM3 chem model. We're going to be breaking down our storm hour by hour here. So if you take a look, as we get into the afternoon and evening hours of today, watch how that sleet and that snow starts to kind of come together there and start to spread across sections of Kansas and into Missouri. But really, everything happens overnight as we get into really the middle of the night. All right, you can see the storm really starts to take shape, and all of a sudden we have a nice thick layer here, or I wouldn't say just a thick layer, but you have a pretty strong area or band of freezing rain, sleet, and snow mixing in here. So if you're in central Missouri, you're gonna start out with a pretty nasty like sleet kind of freezing rain mix. But you're going to start out with ice accumulating if you're in central Kansas, eastern Kansas, or western Missouri here. All right, but anybody north of really St. Louis, if you were to draw a line from St. Louis out to areas to the west of St. Louis, if you were to draw a line like this, anybody north of this line will probably stay as snow. I think you're probably going to see snow if you're in kind of right around the line here between seeing sleet and snow there. I'd be continuing to kind of put this in motion, and you can see that if you're in central Illinois, you're gonna start out with snow, and you can see some of these bands seem to be very, very heavy. So we could definitely have heavy hitting snow to start the event already by early morning hours of tomorrow. And you can see a lot of that freezing rain starting to get very, very heavy down here in the southeastern Missouri. I'm very concerned for that area specifically, where we have the ice storm warnings. I really do think that there's going to be a corridor of possibly as high as over 3/4 of an inch of ice accumulations with that. And you can see why. I mean, this is really, really heavy freezing rain and sleet that's kind of just falling there across sections of southern Illinois into eastern Missouri. You're starting out as snow for St. Louis, but that quickly changes over to freezing rain. You pretty much stay as freezing rain off of the NAM the whole event. Now, I do think the NAM has definitely got some issues with this. The NAM isn't typically the best model for winter storms, but we're showing this because it is a very high-resolution model, and the HRRR doesn't go out too far. All right, but this does kind of give us a sense of what could happen. I do think, though, the storm may be a little bit farther south than what the NAM is showing, so I do think we may see a little bit more snow rather than freezing rain and sleet out here in St. Louis, but definitely still very concerning stuff with that, and I do think you'll definitely have a period or two of freezing rain and sleet in St. Louis. But you can see across the board that shield of snow here is really, really starting to ramp up. And you can see also across sections of eastern Kentucky here, southern Ohio, southern Indiana, even into central Illinois. A lot of these areas will be talking about, close to whiteout conditions if you get strong enough winds. But I mean, you see some of these pinks showing up here. This is really intense, heavy snowfall. Or we're talking about snowfall rates that could be as high as 1 to 2 inches, maybe as high as 3 inches per hour. All right, so this is pretty insane stuff that we got going on here, but it's going to be snowing like crazy out there in eastern Kentucky before that kind of switches over to freezing rain, and then this gets very, very heavy over northern Kentucky. Honestly, northern Kentucky may end up with the most freezing rain. We'll talk about why in a second, but you can see just off the NAM, this run the NAM has it pounding. I mean, you're just like if you looked outside every half hour, you would actually be visibly be able to see how much the ice is accumulating. You'd be able to see that it accumulates higher and higher on those tree branches and surfaces there, and even those roadways. And then that storm finally moves out. But really, the peak of the intensity of the storm. Really, as we get into the afternoon hours of tomorrow, right around lunchtime, when most people are on the roadways here, all right, this is when things are really starting to get concerning. But that ice starts to really come together, and this ice storm shows its fury right around the over the late overnight hours of tomorrow night into Monday, and then that pushes off to the east. But you could definitely get a little bit of backside snow if you're in Kentucky there on top of the ice, which is once again just going to cause even worse problems. But that Arctic blast really starts to come in on the backside, and you're just going to get dry and extremely cold air. I mean, look at that. That's 1,042 millibar high pressure there. So really cold and dry air on the backside, kind of feeling this region here. But that's a heck of a storm there. But yeah, we're very concerned about some of these areas, and you can also see a little bit of northeastern Kansas could definitely have a couple of hours of very intense heavy snowfall, depending on how intense those bands actually get. So if you look at the NAM here, this is for your snow totals. Okay, I did choose the NAM, putting all the NAM models together here, not just the NAM 3K model, because it does kind of show a better picture here with snow totals. But if you look, you can see we are expecting close to 8, maybe as high as 8 to 10 inches for sections of northern Missouri here into southern Iowa. You can see these areas of purple here. This is a good 8 to 10 inches. But that's all the way down into northeastern Kansas as well. You can even see southeastern Nebraska, close to over 10 inches of snow. I think close to a foot is certainly possible if you're in some of these areas. But the heavy hitters, the jackpot areas, really once again Illinois. Look at this, guys. Little corridor of over a foot of snow here in Illinois, central Illinois, right around a foot there. So if you're in any of these, dark purple, close to those pink or like red shaded areas, all right, that's where you're talking about close to 10 inches. And if you're in the red, obviously, that's where a foot of snow is certainly possible, and that kind of comes into play here. But we have a little bit of a little area of 14 inches of snow showing up here in Illinois. I know, got a good friend, Davis does weather. I know he's going to be getting a ton of footage, so go check him out. He's also going to be doing live coverage for this event. So he's also going to be getting just a ton of snowfall right here. Right, but he's in one of these areas that could really see close to a foot of snow. But that's not all. That spreads into sections of southern and central Indiana there, and you can actually see we do get another area close to 8 to 10, maybe as high as a foot of snow. And then really, the NAM surprisingly wants southern Ohio to be the kind of the jackpot area specifically, like the biggest hitting area of this whole event. At a whopping 17 inches of snow, which I don't think is overdone. I think this storm max definitely is very high. I think I wouldn't say exactly the sky's the limit for this storm, but I do think that this storm has a very potent chance here of producing overachieving snowfall totals. So I do think that something like 17 inches, I don't think you can consider that to be crazy. I think with this storm, then that's certainly a possibility that we need to consider there. But it does actually bring a good amount of snow from northern Kentucky. There you can see a good 8 to 10 inches with close to a foot, the closer you're to Ohio. And then if you go into West Virginia here, that's where we start to see those totals go down slightly, but still a good 8 to 10, 6 to 8 inches across the board here. So, really big time totals with that. If you look at St. Louis, the NAM, this run of the NAM wants about 4 to 6 inches. I would say that because you're so close to this line here of between 3 or 4 to 8 inches of snow, I'd say really you can expect about 6 to 8 inches. If I were telling you in St. Louis there, all right, but I mean, if you're talking about like Louisville, all right, still about 2 to 4, 4 to 6 inches is what you can expect, all right, for this event. So if we move over to the NAM here, also taking a look at your ice accumulations, this kind of goes back to the ice storm I was talking about earlier. Okay, this is what's the really concerning part. Look what we have out here in the southeastern Missouri. We have an area of what the NAM is showing is over an inch of ice accumulations, which the NAM has been known for slightly overdoing ice accumulations. But this just shows you how just intense this ice storm could get, and how major these ice accumulations could be. But you're talking about, over an inch of ice, or just at least around an inch of ice, certainly possible north of the Boot Heel, into these southeastern counties of Missouri that spreads into southern Illinois, where we still have those other ice storm warnings. You can see another area of, anywhere from half inch to an inch of ice is certainly possible. In this extreme southern Indiana. I mean, this is kind of just going crazy, but the signal is there for a major ice storm. Okay, you're going to get trees snapping, you're going to get power lines coming down. You're going to get widespread power outages with the storm. This is, I wouldn't say it's a quite historic ice storm, but it's a very, very dangerous ice event, that to say the least here. And this is just not looking good. It's going to produce a lot of power outages, and just those road conditions are going to be treacherous. So you really want to avoid interstates and major highways as much as possible, even just roadways. I mean, you could be taking out the trash. There could be so much ice that you could slip down your driveway, and that's how much ice we're talking about here. But a lot of that showing up more widespread here in northern Kentucky, really anywhere from a half inch to a quarter, three-quarters of an inch of ice is certainly possible out here. And then all the way to Virginia, we're talking about, anywhere from tenth of an inch to half an inch of ice is certainly possible, and then around a quarter of an inch seems to be the average here for sections of West Virginia. But those mountainous regions, I don't know what's going on here, but this further dam is picking up on a signal for close to 2 inches of ice, which I doubt is going to actually happen. But just to kind of give you guys a sense of what we're talking about here in terms of ice accumulation numbers, we're going to see a lot of ice. All right, that's all I got to say. But those areas that end up seeing the heaviest of bands there with that freezing rain, that's where you're going to see the more ice accumulations. If I were to give you a location, I would specifically pinpoint probably southeastern Missouri as my biggest highlighted area. And then the next biggest highlighted area I'd probably say is right around here between southern Indiana and Kentucky. But I really do think that this area will be very widespread, but there will be some localized areas of close to an inch, if not over an inch, accumulations reported here in southeastern Missouri. So very, very dangerous ice storm. This is going to produce power outages. You got to be careful with this. Just stay indoors. And that's all I got to say. So really, if you're out and about today, that's fine because it will not be freezing. There won't be any freezing rain yet. But today's your last day for preparations. Get as much food as possible. If you have a generator, make sure that that's ready to go, because today is going to be the day that you're going to need it most probably for this whole winter. All right. But you go over here to the northeastern United States. We kind of go to different regions here to look at what the rest of the track of the storm would look like, and you see that storm kind of comes in the picture here, and it does start to snow very heavily to open the storm here right around 3 p.m. on your Sunday. All right, so right around Sunday afternoon, you could start to see a lot of heavy snow building into southwestern West Virginia there, and that kind of spreads into the rest of the Northeast here. All right, if you're talking about Virginia here, if you're in Western Virginia, you're starting out as all freezing rain. If you're in Northern Virginia, you're talking about snow, but you're starting to see snow really starting to kind of just come into play here. If you're in Delmarva, Philadelphia, it's snowing. It's snowing in D.C. It's not snowing in New York City on this run. I will say things have trended south as of the last couple of runs. So actually, it's interesting. If you're talking about New York City, the official National Weather Service forecast yesterday was for a little bit over an inch, close to an inch and a half of snow. Okay, that forecast has gone down, so now we're predicting about half an inch to an inch of snow because things have trended farther south. And there's a chance we might not see any snow at all, but it's really depending on how precisely north that system goes. But you can see as of this run, all of southern PA getting in on some of that snow. We do have some of those winter storm watches for some of these areas: southern New Jersey, Delmarva, Philadelphia, DC, and then it stays at heavy snow if you're in DC. You never really do change over to freezing rain unless you're at the very end of the event. We do see a couple hours of that heavy freezing rain, but for the most part, you never see a change over to rainfall. You're mostly just stays heavy snow. But look at this band setting up here, kind of embedded in just a good blanket or a pocket of light to moderate snowfall. You do see a embedded band here of very heavy snowfall rates, and I think this is something that could be possible that could end up producing a little bit higher totals with that. And if that kind of runs through DC and Philadelphia, that could obviously lower visibility. but increase those totals. So I do think that there's definitely a possibility you're going to have a major winter storm if you're talking about some of these areas. And on the backside, you do see some more of that snow for some areas that may not have seen it a little bit further south. So maybe into southern Virginia, we could end up talking about some light to moderate snowfall on the backside. All right, but it's really looking like the farther north you go, um, the higher the totals will be, but you really don't want to go too far north because obviously in a case of like New York City, you're kind of just missing out on a couple inches of snow here. But right around the middle of the precipitation here, right around the middle of the storm, that's where you're going to see the heaviest rates of precipitation. It could be snow, could be freezing rain, or it could be rainfall. But right around that freezing mark, or right around where that 540 line and where the warm sector meet, that's where you're going to see the heaviest rates of precipitation. So, pretty impactful storm. This will continue until obviously the morning hours of Monday, into the afternoon hours. But this is really just looking very concerning as far as ice. I think ice is going to be more of the kind of the big deal with this than snow. But we're definitely going to see snow. We're going to be snowed in. A lot of these areas, we're going to see plows, being put to work out in this region. But definitely very, very concerning stuff. So, we turn things over here to the NAM 3K model for your snowfall totals out in the mid-Atlantic, and this is pretty interesting as well. Let me put this out so you guys can see. All right, this doesn't go, obviously, for the full duration of the event because you have still that backside snow to move through. Okay, but for the first, good 3/4 of the event, you can see we have a signal for close to 8 to 10 inches right around the DC or just north of DC area here, Delmarva. 8 to 10 inches is certainly not out of the picture. Extreme southern New Jersey, 6 to 8 inches is possible. Central New Jersey, 4 to 6 inches. But you're talking about the same kind of areas here for the hills and valleys of western PA and southern Pennsylvania. Still 8 to 10 inches is certainly possible. I think that goes the same for Northern Virginia, especially these upper elevations. The higher in the elevation you get, the higher the chance you're going to see close to a foot of snow. But really, Southern PA close to 6 to 8 inches. If you're talking about Philadelphia, really about 2 to 4 inches is what you can expect. But on this particular run, it doesn't show any snow for New York City, which I also think is a possibility. But really, it's looking like Delmarva and Northern Virginia is going to be the biggest hitting areas as far as the Mid Atlantic with this specific event. So, for the last part of the update, we do need to flip things over to the deep south here because there is severe weather associated with this storm. This is day 2. This is for tomorrow. We have an enhanced risk for severe weather that does include areas of western Mississippi, northeastern Louisiana. This is a very similar area we talked about just a couple days ago. On December 28th, we obviously had that major tornado and severe weather outbreak with that enhanced risk, or excuse me, moderate risk. I know they did consider going high risk on that day. We saw a couple EF3s from that event. So this is not going to be to that magnitude, but a very, very similar area. So if you find yourself in enhanced risk, there is a chance you're going to see tornadoes. But luckily today, it doesn't look like it's going to be or for tomorrow, it doesn't look like it's going to be a massive tornado threat, luckily, as it will most likely be a, kind of a quasi-linear convective system kind of event, QLCS, meaning damaging wind gusts, kind of a line of producing damage to wind gusts. But for now, you have an enhanced risk, including Jackson, Mississippi, Monroe, Louisiana, Greenville, Mississippi, Vicksburg, Mississippi, and Clinton, Mississippi. And you also have the slight risk for the surrounding areas in the yellow shade. And if you're in the green shade, you have the marginal risk. And so the slight risk is level 2 out of 5, 3 out of 5 in the enhanced, and then 1 out of 5 in the marginal risk. But here's the tornado threat. It's a 5% now, but it's very broad. This could get upgraded to a 10% risk if parameters do increase. But the only way this would increase is if we saw a higher signal of embedded tornadoes within a line of damage wind gusts, because that's the only thing we're going to see tomorrow. We're not going to see kind of those, super cells that are going to be tracking across the region. That's not what we're going to see. The only way we get a tornado is if it spins up kind of embedded with the line here. But we have a pretty broad 5% risk extending out to those all of these slight and enhanced risk areas there. We could see Baton Rouge, Shreveport, Jackson, Mississippi, Lafayette, Louisiana, and Beaumont, Texas are all currently in that risk. All right, but if you find yourself in the marginal risk, you also do have a 2% risk of seeing a tornado. Relatively low, but it's slightly elevated, so you definitely can't ignore it there. All right, but if you look at wind here, this is the thing that's driving the enhanced risk. We actually do have a 30% chance of seeing damage and wind gusts within 25 miles of a given location. It's not hatched, but it definitely could get hatched by tomorrow here, but that does include all of the enhanced risk, 15% chance of damaging wind gusts in the slight risk area, and then 5% in the marginal risk. And then finally, your hail threat is extremely low. It's only a 5% risk here, only because we're really not expecting any supercells tomorrow unless they are embedded with the line. But we definitely could see, close to quarter size hail, I'd say, but really nothing much other than that with the hail threat. So, for last part of the update, we look at the NAM 3K model, kind of our future track for our dampened wind gust line. You can see already, really by 3 p.m., this is getting into tomorrow afternoon, we already do kind of see a line starting to set up here, really from southern Arkansas down into the Houston, Texas area, that kind of sweeps through. And this is what we see throughout the afternoon and evening hours. Right, this does get quite intense, and you really, I'd say, because of the sharp contrast, this is a signal for probably some, up to 70-mile-an-hour wind gusts. I do think that, 60 to 70-mile-an-hour wind gusts are certainly possible at the highest and, most impactful points of this line here. All right, but all along this line, you're going to have the potential for seeing damaging wind gusts, and I think that pretty far north, where I do think they could definitely extend the enhanced risk. I think they could definitely extend it here into northwestern Mississippi. Because look at this. I mean, this looks like a very intense portion of the line. Excuse me. All right, so this is looking very concerning as far as possible wind damage with that, but that will kind of continue to sweep through into the very early morning hours of Monday, and then that kind of breaks apart and falls apart as it moves into Alabama and into Georgia and eastern Tennessee there. But this is going to get very intense for a couple hours. We may actually have to do severe weather coverage for this, so if we do need to do coverage for this, we will definitely be live if possible, also to cover our major winter storm. All right, but this definitely looks like a very concerning event, to say the least here. But I definitely think that severe weather is going to also play a big role in just kind of how impactful this storm altogether will be. All right, so that's all I got for you guys. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video. So, just stay safe out there. Make sure that you're getting prepared today, as it is the last day for preparations. Tomorrow will definitely be where all the impacts happen, but stay off those roadways, especially those interstates and highways. If you need to quickly go grab something, just make sure you're using extra caution, but really overall, just make sure you're staying off the roadways altogether. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So thank you all for coming to watch, and I'll see you guys in the next video.